In the past, I've tried some pretty wacky ideas to deal with phone addiction. I've set limits, changed my screen to grayscale, deleted every app, switched to an iPod, and flat out left it on the side of the road. All of these have pros and cons, but the problem for me is they're just not sustainable long term. They're tools, they've helped me for periods of time, but I'm not gonna watch YouTube in black and white for the rest of my life. I'm just not gonna do it. Not happening. Nope. Also, this seems to get swept under the rug a lot, but modern smartphones are great. This thing adds a lot of value to my life. So today I want to show you how I set up my phone in a way that's aesthetically pleasing, incredibly productive, and still puts a little bit of friction between me and my more troublesome apps. Alright, so my phone of choice is the Galaxy S21. If you have an iPhone, awesome. If you have a Google Pixel, great. This is going to be applicable to pretty much any phone. Starting with the lock screen, I've got my phone set up to unlock in 3 different ways. I've got Face ID, fingerprint, and pattern. Fingerprint is great when it works, but if I've got gloves on or something, then I use face. If I've got sunglasses on, then I can draw the little pattern. While maybe not the most secure having all 3, I like to be able to get into my phone fast. I want it to be operable with one hand. This is going to be a bit of a theme throughout the video. I've got a clean minimalistic wallpaper, the date, the time, and that's it. Notifications and widgets are set to never show up on my lock screen. The only exception to that is Spotify, which is actually kind of helpful. I don't wear a watch, so it's super common for me to constantly be pulling out my phone to get the date or the time throughout the day. And if that's the information I'm looking for, I don't want to see anything else. I don't want to be distracted by anything else. Speaking of which, let's talk about notifications, which on most apps are completely off. It's actually kind of incredible how many utterly useless notifications companies will come up with that are practically begging you to open their app. They're literally just ads on your phone. Personally, if I see a notification, it is so hard for me not to open it. I don't have them on anymore, but apps like eBay and Amazon would send me notifications like reminding me to buy things. If there is a notification or two on an app that I think would be helpful, I am gonna leave it on, but for the most part, get them out of there. Moving on, let's check out my home screen. There are a lot of ways I've set this up in the past. I've gone extremely minimal, I've gone the folder route. This is my favorite method right now. If you've ever heard of the 80-20 rule, this setup sort of follows that, where basically 80% of the time I've noticed that I'm only using 20% of my apps. In my case, it's actually way more extreme than that. My phone's set up so on the home screen, 95% of the time, the app I need is only one tap away. Okay, so at the top, I've got a pretty chunky widget showing the date and time. Maybe not the best use of screen real estate, but I think it looks clean. I've sort of got this habit now where I end up unlocking my phone without even thinking, so I like having the date and time not just on the lock screen, but my home screen as well. Under that, I've got a widget for internet rather than an app. It's just the default Samsung widget, but it's pretty cool. If you tap here, you open your last tab. Tap here, you can immediately start typing in a new tab, and if you hit this icon, you can search with voice, which I've been doing a lot more lately. Next to that, I've got a widget for an app called Toggle, which I use for time tracking on things like client projects, YouTube videos, or anything else I want to keep track of. For music, I use Spotify. I love it, not much else to say. And I don't know about you, but I find myself needing a calculator all the time. This is just the default one. Next, I've got Google Drive, the default weather app, the default gallery app for photos and videos, and the clock app, which obviously has a clock, but also my alarm, stopwatch, and timer. Then there's Notion, the productivity app that runs my entire life at this point, and next to that is a Notion widget. That might seem a little redundant, but I use Notion as my general notes app, and this just speeds things up. Whether I have a breakthrough idea in the shower, or I'm on the phone and someone starts reading me crucial information, I feel like I'm always in a bit of a hurry to jot things down. With one tap, I can immediately start typing, it stores it right where I want, and it syncs with my computer, which is great. I've got an interval timer I use for workouts, Google Maps for navigation, Gmail, and Google Calendar, which is my calendar of choice. On the very bottom, I've got settings, calling, texting, which I use Google Messages for, and contacts. You might have noticed I don't have a camera app anywhere, And that's because the only way I ever access my camera is by double tapping the power button. Again, it just comes down to speed. It even works if my phone's asleep. When a moment happens, that's the fastest way to capture it. But as you might have guessed, this isn't all my apps. There's one more page we need to look at that I call the bedroom closet. Basically, this is where I shove everything else. Everything I want quick access to and open every day is on my homepage. Everything I rarely use, or maybe even want to make harder to get to, gets shoved into folders on page 2. There's so many apps for parking, food, or content creation that I need. I can still find them super easy, but this method also keeps troublesome apps out of sight and out of mind. Also, you'll notice I keep all my apps on the bottom half of the screen, sort of towards the bottom right. That's just so I can access everything one-handed with my stubby little thumb. Depending on how addicted you are to your phone, you might need to take some extreme measures. I've certainly done that before and probably will again. But the whole idea with this setup is I want to be able to use my phone productively, as frictionless as possible, while increasing the friction with apps that are a little more troublesome, a little more addicting, or I really don't need that often. If you know of any cool apps, widgets, or features that work for you, let me know in the comment section down below. Watch another video if you feel like it, and I'll see you in the next one.